The babe born first, destined to be king, was order reversed. On this the future swings. Estolian way brings belief in succession, an order to things hampered by confusion.
Most young men complete the acolyte year at the age of 18. Then at 30, they marry. After their seclusion, they begin their elder year. They are introduced to the adio of marriage, which will guide those who have newly yielded up their souls to their Kayleys and who now must navigate that most difficult transition to having their souls kept safe and secure by another, entirely separate from their own bodies. 2 men in each generation break this pattern. The future king's elder year of instruction is suitably altered to match his rank and future position, and is only 6 months in duration. For the future keeper, this instruction is not provided until the 8th day after the start of his seclusion, when he takes upon himself the soul of all Estolia and becomes the keeper, the highest authority and final voice on the weightiest decisions.
Nicodemus Luciano Zakarian, Capit Ulo 89. Ricard stared at the 2 perfect and perfectly identical baby boys in the crib. The doctor's urgent commands to the midwife, rushing to finish surgery on the woman who would be queen, faded into background noise. Ricard tuned it all out, his focus anchored entirely on the infants. The baby removed first, resting furthest from him, was not the one deity intended to be king. No, deity deliberately made the order of birth unimportant to those handling the infants, ensuring that he, Ricard, as keeper, could select the child based on the wishes of deity instead of the vagaries of medical chance. He could hear the commotion settling down and knew that the tense moments while the doctor was operating were at an end. He glanced over to his nephew, the doctor, the midwife, and asked with a tone of humor in his voice,
"Which babe was firstborn?"
The midwife blinked. The doctor exchanged a glance with his assistant. No one spoke. Nobody had bothered to keep track, just as Ricard surmised. He stepped forward and touched the infant he knew was second pulled from the womb.
"This will be the child designated firstborn."
He tied a strip of lace to one small wrist and turned to Reggie.
"Do you know what Charlotte would wish to name him?"
Charlotte and I have discussed the names of all of our future children, as well as the name for our first son and the future king,"
Reggie said. Ricard watched the rigid panic seep out of his nephew's posture. The raw fight-or-flight terror of nearly losing Charlotte was finally giving way, replaced by profound awe as Reggie looked at the beautiful child. He cleared his throat before saying,
"Maximiliano Sebastian, 86th King of Estolia."
"And your second son?"
"Xavier Archimedes, the future keeper of the soul of Estolia."
Ricard placed his hand on Reggie's shoulder. The warmth of his palm carried the full weight of his office, and he watched the last tremors of panic drain from his nephew's frame. Peace settled between them, solid and sure.
"She will see her grandchildren born, all of them,"
Ricard told him.
"I say this not as your uncle, but as keeper. Your wife will live a happy, healthy life, and you both will see every grandchild born. 6 grandchildren. You will cherish your love as the precious commodity it is."
Reggie's eyes drifted closed. Ricard gave him a moment with deity before withdrawing quietly, leaving the new family to their first hours together.
The second was born in silence and red, no witness to warn the first from the bed.
Ricard smiled his gratitude to the acolytes holding the doors open for him. He paused in the spacious foyer, absorbing the familiar weight of the structure that had cradled his life within the mountain for the last 30 years. The rich hues of the floor tiles, black, brown, gold, and tan, remained as vibrant as the day the temple was completed. It was hard to believe that each tile was handmade. He looked around the foyer, trying to see it with new eyes. Most of the stone walls were worked to a polish that rivaled the floor tiles. To the left, The academic wing stretched away, 6 classrooms visible along its length. In those rooms, the young men of the nation gathered to learn about the faith and the history of Estolia. The 2 topics were so inextricably entwined that acolytes could not learn one without learning about the other. The somewhat mutinous young men who entered at the beginning of the year left the temple 12 months later, polished, poised, steeped in the traditions that made Estolia utterly unique in the world. That transformation never failed to move him. He turned his attention from the academic wing to the ceremony room. After a moment, he decided to step inside. The acolytes assigned to the foyer came forward and opened the doors. He remembered his own acolyte years. Full of his own importance as the future keeper, he had been incredulous when he was assigned to open doors in the first foyer. He was careful now as keeper to select only those worthy of the task. Few acolytes had the necessary character to open the doors outside the main entrance and in the first and second foyers. Yet every year brought at least a few who could do it. An extraordinary talent was required, and the spiritual growth was equally profound. As the doors to the ceremony room closed behind him, he descended only halfway down the steps. Turning to his left, he walked along the 3rd-tier part of the way around the ceremony room and settled onto a seat, looking out over the tiers. The entire complement of learners in the temple could fit in the ceremony room at once, not quite 400 students. The capacity of the temple was never challenged. He leaned back against the tier behind him and looked up at the one stalactite dangling from the impossibly high ceiling. Several dark rectangles marked places where those in the upper levels could look down into the ceremony room. The stalactite was like an old friend, there at every ceremony as a silent observer. When he stood to leave the ceremony room, he faced what disturbed him. The 2 babies born in such an uncommon way had gripped his heart. Something extraordinary would come from one or both boys. Not only would they be fully successful in their hereditary roles as future king and keeper, but they would, in ways he could not grasp, affect the course of the world and the nations upon it. He knew that there would be heartbreak and pain, but that was hardly unusual for 2 boys as highly favored as those were. He left the ceremony room and headed for his office, smiling at Timothy, an acolyte who excelled at his post. Once inside, he looked toward the statue of Zacharias. The founder was always there to guide every keeper. Sometimes Ricard wondered why the keeper received so much guidance while the king had so little. But it was necessary. His brother was perfect for his role, but it was really only a role, a consolation prize for being the one man constrained by Zacharias's promise to deity, required to fulfill his destiny, yield his soul unto a virgin on the night of his 30th birthday, and take her for his wife. A tap sounded on the door to his office. After a moment, the door swung wide and his son entered. Ricard crossed the room to embrace him. Antonio glanced warily at the statue of Zacharias, a mannerism Ricard had seen before, but never questioned.
What gives you so much concern, Antonio, that you look to Zacharias each time you visit my office?
It seemed somehow the right time for such revelations. Antonio looked away from Ricard and back to the statue, before admitting,
I feel he judges me, finds me lacking.
Ricard thought he understood where his son was coming from. He had suffered many misgivings in his earlier years too, but he sensed his son had greater misgivings than usual. He gestured toward the conference table, and they sat across from each other.
In what way are you lacking?
Antonio's chin wobbled slightly, and Ricard's attention sharpened.
Samuel,
he whispered.
It is my fault he is dead. I do not deserve to take his place as keeper.
His son would not accept empty reassurances. He needed to know he was forgiven for any crime, and that the role he was going to fill was truly his.
In what way is it your fault that Samuel is dead?
Antonio looked away, his gaze fixed on something distant.
We were curious about the Florida. We were diving for pirate treasure.
And it was your idea to dive in search of treasure?
No, it was Samuel's idea.
The babe born first, destined to be king, was order reversed. On this the future swings. Estolian way brings belief in succession, an order to things, hampered by